Hi lovelies, hello, completely different setting. I don't know what the sound will be like, I don't know what the lighting will be like, but this is where I normally repair my clothes. We're in the middle of winter right now. It's 95% humidity at the same time as being cold and windy and raining. So as you can tell, my hair is like... So I worked in retail for 5 years, and that means that not only do I have experience from working in a fabric shop but also in fast fashion, and so I've kind of got a good understanding about fabrics, about the things behind the scenes. So we're going to be talking about some horror stories, some tips and tricks, and some fixes that you kind of need to do immediately if you buy new stuff, mends to do to your clothes, like that sort of stuff, to hopefully help you out, because I know it can be really challenging because we're not really raised like knowing all of this stuff. If you watched last week's video, you'll know that I really wanted to get into fashion, so that's kind of what led me into retail, because hey, university, absolutely terrifying to me, plus the cost of it. So I wanted to go from the ground up and become a buyer. Obviously didn't happen, but also last week's video was very heavy. It was a lot, so that is why we're having something comforting and cozy, and we can learn some stuff and, you know, try and do our little bit for the environment in a nice way that's not too intimidating for people, because hey, the climate crisis is here, but I don't want people to panic. My aesthetic is very much like this scene from Sleeping Beauty. I know I am the clouds. You're welcome to compliment me on my secondhand shopping, but don't look too closely at these pants because I spilled some chocolate on them, but I haven't washed them. Let's talk about secondhand, because I know that in America and stuff you've got things like Depop and Craigslist, is it, and stuff like that. Here we've got like Trade Me and Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace, I don't even waste my time on. I either go to like secondhand shops or charity shops. Like typically it's more hospice or SPCA shops that I go to, as opposed to like the big one, which I'll be showing you today, because hey, I don't want you to know where I live. Surprise, surprise. So when people worry that we'll be running out of clothes, sweetie, just look at this footage. We've got enough clothes to clothe the planet 10 million times over. Hyperbole here, but like, there are enough clothes, darling, there really are, okay? And buying from Shein is not going to actually help the garment workers that are forced to make those clothes. It's not going to help anyone. And I do understand the arguments about size inclusivity and the issues around that, because that's why people still do shop at traditional stores. I fully get that, because if you have anything other than what is considered to be a normal body of this very narrow stereotype, which has to fit into a certain height, everything, ableness, a lot of issues around that, so I'm fully not attacking people for that at all. I do have a slight issue with the fact that baggy clothing has become such a big thing, which means that tiny people are wearing clothes meant for bigger sizes. That takes away that already smaller marketplace. So I've got a bit of an issue with that, but hey, whatever. Let's talk about some secondhand tips, because I'd still rather people buy secondhand if you do need to buy something new. If you really cannot wear the clothes that you've currently got, if you really do need something, it is a good way to get a bit of a refresh, to have something go out of your closet that you're no longer wearing, get something in that you're going to get a lot of use out of. Lessons for everybody, secondhand shopping and new, if you still do buy new: wash your clothes immediately. And I do mean once you get them home and you have a full wash to go on, don't wear the clothes immediately. From working in retail, people try the clothes on in all states. The clothes get dumped on the floor all the time, they get trodden on in the fitting rooms, they get returned and then put back out on the floor after people have worn them out clubbing, because we don't have enough evidence to be able to say, oh, we can't actually have that back, because they somehow miraculously managed to still have the tag on it. Oh my goodness, people, please do not do that tactic. What the hell? Just please wash your clothes immediately. Also, because they don't get washed beforehand, like before sewing even, they don't pre-wash the fabric, so in a lot of cases, like, dresses shrink as well. So just be mindful of that if you're trying on different sizes, if you are buying new. But for secondhand as well, just wash all the time, please. Same as the care labels. Okay, so care labels are actually quite important. They do like to try and cover all bases, so you will find it's normally cold hand wash, separate the colors and all that other stuff. Dry clean only is applied a bit too liberally, in my opinion, from working at the fabric shop as well. They just try and say whatever to cover their own backs, so then you won't bring stuff back to the shop. But the jacket that I got, which hopefully you'll be able to figure out what next week's video is going to be from looking at the things I was looking at. So that jacket said dry clean only. screw that, I'm not dry cleaning a jacket. I just popped it in a cold wash and it turned out absolutely fine, as you will see next week. I also really want to embroider that coat so badly. I want to get my embroidering skills up, and I want to do some beautiful designs on that. That's what I really want to do. Another reason to check the label is I tried this jumper on because it said 100% wool. I put it on and I itched like a cat infested with fleas. So if you can, please try the clothing on, because you want to know how it feels against your bare skin. Most of us, especially not me, I don't layer. In Auckland our humidity is between 85% to 95%, and layers aren't really great for me. Even in winter. It's winter right now and I'm wearing a crop top because the weather is that unpredictable here, okay? Like, the humidity is really, really high. Test it against your bare skin, wear it, see how it feels like when you're bending around and stuff, because some people, like myself, do not work well with things like wool. Cotton normally is fine. Bamboo is normally beautiful against the skin. I wish that more things were made with bamboo. Same as hemp. Hemp is a fantastic fabric. But there are definitely some things to just look out for and make sure that you actually like the way it feels against your skin, because again, clothes are to be worn and enjoyed. But say for example, if a fabric is really fine silk or something, or if something has beads on it or something like that, always the garment bags that you can buy to wash things in, those are really, really good. Same as for bras, always put that sort of stuff in garment bags or bra bags, please. You'll save your clothes, you'll make them last a lot longer. Great thing to do. Stains is another thing to look out for. I was really trying to capture this in this footage so that you can actually see some of the stains that are around the place. Check always around the necklines. If you're dealing with something that's white, you can normally bleach it so then the stain goes completely. And I've also seen other people bleach things in the sun. For me, when I accidentally spilled curry on my light blue track pants, I managed to actually wash that out immediately with like dish soap. Is actually a really, really good stain remover. But the longer that stains set in clothes, the harder it's going to be able to get rid of them, in particular for things like oil. Oil is one of the hardest things to be able to get out of clothing, so just watch out for that. So check around the sleeves, around the cuffs, and check around necklines in particular, and also in the tummy area, because a lot of us are clumsy eaters, myself included. And one more thing, do the scrunch test if you hate ironing. You don't know what the scrunch test is? You grab a hunk of the clothing and you scrunch it up in your hand for like 10 seconds. If it's something that should be ironed after that amount of time, then you'll know, because the scrunching will still be there. So typically things like blouses, shirts, like that sort of stuff, you'll be able to see. But as for things like this sort of like top, it doesn't actually matter. But if you hate ironing, do the scrunch test. You'll save yourself a lot of pain. I hate ironing, so I always watch out for that. Another tip, moving is important, because nobody walks like on the Balenciaga catwalk, okay? You want to be able to walk in your clothes, stoop down, literally bend down, sit down, like stretch your arms up, everything. See how things ride up, see how things move around as you're wearing them. Make sure to actually move in them, because otherwise you'll have this stilted vision of them. Don't go buying gold clothes as like weight loss gold clothes, like everyone got taught was like a good thing to do. It's not, it just leads to more waste. And we're living in a climate crisis with 3 years left to make drastic change. We don't need that, okay? Okay. Zipper issues. This gets overlooked all the time, and in particular with dresses which have like waistbands. They can really shove a lot of fabric into that sort of area, and so the zipper, because zippers are not all made equal, and a lot of the zippers used in fast fashion are crap, to put it nicely. So always test them out heaps when you're wearing them, because a lot of the time you get like a really hefty bunch of fabric, like I'm showing you on this dress I managed to find, and so it can be really, really hard to get the zipper up. And you want to be able to put clothes on yourself. It just makes sense to test out the zipper a lot, because they're not really made well, especially with invisible zippers. It makes sense to test out, because if you're not a good sewer and then the zip breaks, then what can you do? You can try and give it back to secondhand, but then they'll just chuck it in with the rags because they're like, this is broken, and they don't have time to fix it, you know? Improper storage of clothing. As you can see from this rack of jumpers, not everything should be hung up. There are particular fabrics that are not made for a coat hanger in the slightest. They should be folded. In particular, this impacts jumpers or finer fabrics which have a bit of stretch to them, because otherwise you get like this weird little nipple on your shoulder from the coat hanger, which doesn't always leave, and so you're just stuck with this weird little thing up here. If you ever see people with that, that's because things have been hung on a coat hanger which shouldn't be hung on a coat hanger. And if you don't have those like fancy thick ones with the nice big foamy things on them, just fold them, put them in a drawer. Seriously, same as when you're trying to buy secondhand, check for this stuff, because sadly, especially with the open weave, like coat hangers can actually go through them and just make the holes worse. So it's just something to look out for. Again, the depth of fabric. Now, as you can see, I'm a very tactile person. I will touch everything and really try and assess how thick a fabric is before trying it on. In particular with women's clothes, I hate this because they actually make them very see-through. They make them basically out of baby muslin or something. Say for example, if you're wearing a bra, like the top isn't thick enough to be able to stop the bra from being seen, which frustrates me no end. This can be really cute when it comes to like a chiffon shirt or something, and if you've got small boobs you can do this, but if you've got big boobs, then apparently it's trashy. Like if people can see my bra, I'm considered to be a terrible person. So trying to find the fabrics, especially if you're buying secondhand, you can still see this in photos as they typically have them on a hanger. Check if you can see the hanger, they'll be able to see your bra through it. I hate it, but that's just the way it is. It's just a little pro tip, because then that means that the fabric's also cheaper and will wear more. So you don't really want that if you want to be able to get maximum use out of your clothing. Just another thing to look out for. However, if you want to be able to show your bra off, then hey, that's a great thing. But for people like me that definitely can't get away with that, because hey, as I talked about in my objectification video, I'm not allowed. But yeah, if you can see the coat hanger through the fabric, it's the All American Reject set. Now, holes is another thing to look out for, because on my at-home clothes, I've got holes forming in them. I don't really care. I can just stitch those up. If you're trying to buy secondhand clothes for corporate stuff, then clothes with holes in them is not really a good look. And when you buy new or secondhand, I recommend testing for that. So this can often happen along the seams inside shirts, along here. It's not really out of them being overstretched or anything. It's just fabric that is kind of cheap can just kind of fall apart. We've all seen it, we all know it. So do make sure to check that. And say if people, you know, like those security badges that people pin onto clothes and stuff, and they may have it on the waistband or something, that can actually like tear at the fabric too. There are a lot of ways that fabric can be teared at, so I do recommend making sure that you're actually testing this stuff out as well, and just see if there are holes that you could actually patch up, or if there are holes that are completely unacceptable for you. On the subject of pilling, now on these pants, they've got pilling in them because they are a cotton poly blend. I thought when I was buying these secondhand that they would be completely cotton, because like they're sweatpants, right? So you think like normal cotton. No, these are poly cotton blends, so they're around about 50-50 mix. So that means that you get this pilling action happen, which isn't exactly what I would call ideal. You can get those little like those circular razory type things that you can do, or like you saw me do, what I tend to do if I'm watching something with Brandon is I will just pick at these and pull off the pilling. It's never really gonna fully go away, and because your legs automatically rub together, it's just one of those things to look out for when it comes to buying things secondhand. Especially like for this stuff that I'm wearing around the house, I don't really care all that much, but when it comes to stuff if you want to wear it more professionally, getting one of those is a good little tool. I've just never bought them because I'm like, why do that when my fingers are free? Don't take that out of context. I need to keep this channel monetized. Let's talk about buttons now, because as you can tell on my beautiful powder blue coat, which I absolutely adore, which Brandon bought for me before I got into like secondhand fashion properly, look at these wobbly ass buttons. So this is very, very common in fast fashion, is to use a terrible stitch, which I'll hopefully be putting the footage up right now. So what they do is they have a bunch of threads together, and this is done by machine, which means that you just have these wobbly buttons which basically will unravel if you do your jacket up like 5 times. And no, this does not mean that you'll be able to get a refund or a discount on your coat or jacket or anything of that nature, okay? It's actually kind of like general knowledge that buttons will fall off. So the first thing you should do after you've washed your clothes, of course, because I've told you that story, the first thing to do is to fix the buttons in place properly. When we bought Brandon a winter coat last year, I did that immediately. I was like, okay, cool, wash, gimme, let's stitch. And so just spend like about an hour doing that. Please make sure that you keep all of your little button pouches that come on things. I have a sewing kit which I've had for, I don't know, decades at this point. Just make sure to actually keep those in case you do lose a button, because honestly then I have to replace them all otherwise. I know that you'd think in today's day and age that you wouldn't have to sew buttons on again, but yes, you do, including for that dress. That's what I'm going to be doing for that, because that button is wobbly. Same as for tops if you buy them from cheaper fast fashion shops, because especially if they're fastening at the back, those won't be sewn on well. Same as hooks and eyes, those tend to not be sewn on very well. I've got cat fluff irritating me right here, because you can just see this is literally one knot made out of about 10 threads that's done so loosely, and because it's done so poorly, it actually can create holes in the fabric. But if you're buying like a $300, maybe even sometimes a $500 coat, now you're expecting the buttons to be okay on it? No, no, no. Here I was making like a super long thread so that I didn't have to like get multiple, and now I've just made my job harder. This is another topic which gets questioned a lot, is people comparing the same size from different brands or even from the same brand, and the reason that they're all so different is because buyers get them from all over. Even though you may think that you know the size that you normally are, I always recommend trying things on. I know it's a pain, especially if you're buying secondhand. If you're able to buy secondhand and try things on, or have the seller actually list the measurements, I definitely recommend doing that. And do not put too much emphasis on what the number is, because seriously, who's gonna see it other than you? And this arbitrary like worth we've put on things for having a smaller number attached to stuff, like it makes no sense. I hate this sort of fat phobia in society, and you don't need it. What you do need is clothes that fit you and that you actually feel comfortable and confident in. Okay, we're at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you also learnt something new. If you've also got some similar tips and tricks, leave them in the comments down below, because I think that sharing is caring when it comes to information. I don't like gatekeepy, paywall information stuff. I'm just not here for that life. I think that free and easily accessible information is a great thing for everyone. I've got linked down below some channels which you may want to check out, who get into sewing more in depth, about more tutorials, about fixes that you can do, because that's not really me. I'm not that experienced a sewer. It's just because I worked in retail and I worked with fabric quite a lot, so that's why I know some of these other different tips and tricks. So I'll see you lovelies next week. Take care of yourselves. Maybe start doing some of those repairs I talked about. Maybe have a different look when you are actually looking for secondhand clothes, about what you can get the most use out of, and like finding your own personal style in a way that works for you. If there's just another thing that Gen Z is showing us, it's the fact that you don't just have to be carbon copies of each other. You can dress like a candy floss bubblegum marshmallow thing like me if you want. You can be edgy as hell. You can be all of those things on different days or at the same time. It honestly doesn't matter. The main thing is you're actually getting use out of your clothes and that you're feeling comfortable and confident in them. Honestly, that's what it really comes down to, and that's why I enjoyed working in retail, because it actually helped people like feel that confidence, because that's what I wanted to do, and I hope that I did have that impact on people. They said so, but hopefully it stuck with them. Who knows? I hope it's also had that nice impact on you hanging out with me today and making this a little bit more chill and happy and good vibes. So I'll see you lovelies next week for It's All Happening. Fabric store workers, they actually know an awful lot, and they've got muscles on them as well, because the way that fabric actually arrives at the stores is in these giant bales, which it's so heavy. And did you know that spiders can actually live contained in these little tightly wound fabric rolls for The time it takes to go from, I don't know, somewhere in China to here in Aotearoa on boat, so that's months. And I discovered that at the age of 16, and it was quite terrifying. So I was unrolling the roll, and then this giant spider just scuttled out, and this scream I let out, I can't even explain it. 32-year-old me would still be scared of it. 16-year-old me was not one bit prepared. But if I did that again today, I would only be unrolling fabric in fear now after what I saw. It didn't just happen once, it happened a few times, but you never really want to tell people about it. But yeah, spiders can live for months without air, it seems. If cockroaches don't take over the world, spiders will, that's all I'm saying.